All right, welcome to the Scottsdale Founders Forum 2023 edition. I'm Thomas Markey. I'm a CPA partner with Armando Roman at AXIOM Founders Family Office. Armando, while a CPA, realized that he could be even more impactful for a business owner's family by getting the family's financial affairs in good order, keeping them that way on an ongoing basis, overseeing and coordinating a professional network, working under one overarching long-term financial strategy for that family that owns a business. He sold his tax and accounting business 15 years ago and founded AXIOM Founders Family Office 22 years ago. He's also host of the ever-popular Founders Guidepost, a podcast that provides conversations with experts to help founders have a more successful exit for their business. So let me introduce Armando Roman, our host for this event.
Thank you, Tom. Good, so we're going to have others filtering in here, but that's okay. That's just kind of how it works. So you made a good decision by being here today, and I'm going to tell you why this event even came about. As you may know, Arizona is a hotbed. And so the entire country is looking at Arizona, looking to acquire Arizona businesses, and that's you. So all of you who've had a company for 20 to 30 years and just built this phenomenal business, everybody wants to buy you, and they want to buy you cheap. So we don't want you to sell cheap, and you don't want to sell cheap. So the reason that we have this panel here for you is to talk about the exit and what that means to you, how to prepare for it, etc. And the reason this even came about is we had a client a couple of years ago who they were getting the phone ringing off the hook with offers, and one day they said yes, and then it was game on. They ended up selling for $25 million, but as they were going through that process, it didn't seem like they really got the best value for the company. And if you're going to spend 30 years building a company, our thought was, let's make sure that it happens the right way and that you get the most value and the best exit possible for your business. So the people that you'll hear today are in that exit space. You've got an agenda there in front of you, and you'll see that the first part of the agenda will be a conversation with a founder who had a successful exit. Before he exited, he hired a professional CEO to come on board to get the company prepared for acquisition. So you really enjoy that conversation. After that, we'll have the panel portion where we'll have an investment banker, John Farr, Mike Patterson, an M&A attorney, Kimberly Kur, a charitable advisor with the Arizona Community Foundation, and then we'll have Harold Faig, the professional CEO, and we will have Tashman from the tech group, the founder who sold his company. So that's what we're going to be seeing later today. So let me go through and give you a spoiler alert. Everybody dies. Our bodies just don't hold up. Everybody dies. So we kind of think we're going to live forever, and we don't think about that exit of our business, but the reality is people die all the time. And what you're going to hear and learn today from the panelists is preparing for that eventual exit, because it will happen at some point, and better that it happens when you're prepared for it and you've taken the appropriate steps. That way your family, when you're gone, when your family then has what they need to have to go forward. So again, that's just how things work. Today is all about you and planning for the exit. So that is the goal of today. And let me just tell you what you're going to know once we're done with this afternoon. You're going to know when to start planning. People often think that exit is a quick project, find a buyer and I'll be done. But if you're going to get the maximum value, the full value, and really have the exit where you feel happy about it, that's not how you do it. So you will know when to begin planning. You will also know what expertise should be on your team as you think about that exit. And that expertise, many of them will be here at the table, and you'll hear about others as well, but you'll know what expertise you need at the table. You'll also hear and know about what's called the anatomy of a sale. The attorney Mike Patterson will speak to that and talk about what are the parts of that sale, what are the parts of that contract, and why should you care? And his whole role is to protect his seller, his client, the seller, or his client, the buyer. He's on both sides of that transaction. But you'll hear about that as well. And you'll also know what pitfalls to avoid. For many, if not all of you, selling your company, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It matters to your family, it matters to you, and it has to be done right. About 80% of people, when they sell, they regret it. 12 months after sale, they regret it. So wouldn't it be a shame to build that company over 30 years, sell it, and have regrets? Yes, that would be a shame. You don't want to be in that boat. And so that's why you're going to appreciate the people up here, the panelists at our session here today. Here's what you're going to have. You're going to have the opportunity to hear from experts who buy and sell companies for a living. You'll get to have the opportunity to meet with people after this. We're going to have a social afterwards here in the patio. And the whole reason for the social is selling your business is a very personal, very confidential, private transaction. I sold my CPA firm 15 years ago. And when I sold it, I didn't want my clients to know I was selling it. I did not want my employees knowing I was selling it. So I was talking with 3 different buyers, and I was extremely careful. So you're going to see that we have videos set up in the back. What they're capturing is this table up here up front. You're not going to be in the video or in pictures, and that's very intentional. That's to protect your privacy and your confidentiality. So when you see the video, rest assured you're not going to be in that. That's just not what we're doing. We are doing that because we had enough people who couldn't make it, but they asked us if we could record this for them. And so after this event, in the next couple of weeks or so, you will get a link so that you can see this as well. And that way, you hear something once, you catch bits and pieces of it, but you hear it once or twice or 3 times, you get a lot more from the information. So you'll get a link for that later. And you'll have the opportunity to get the panelists. They've all agreed to stay after at 5:30 for the social hour, so you can pull them aside, ask them a private, confidential question if you'd like to, and be able to have that one-on-one time with them. Here's what you're going to feel when we're all done. You're going to feel a heck of a lot more confident that you are now better prepared for that exit, because now you've heard some of maybe the horror stories, the war stories, but you've also heard about the successes. And you've heard about the process people have gone through for that successful exit. So you will feel much more confident that you are taking the appropriate steps, so that if this is your once-in-a-lifetime exit for your family, that you're really in the right place when it's all said and done. You've taken all those appropriate steps. So as Tom mentioned, I'm the CEO of AXIOM Founders Family Office. We are a wealth management firm and a multifamily office here in Scottsdale. And we are not an ordinary wealth management firm. I say that because our focus is you. It's the founder, it's the business owner. You have a lot more things happening than a family where they're both W-2 employees for some company. So our focus is the founder of that business, you. And I say also not ordinary because as we're looking at you, we're looking at the broader picture. You are a family that happens to own a company worth millions. And if we don't look at that business and do what we can to help shore up that business or help you get the most value, knowing that that value is more than 90% of your overall net worth, then that really isn't helping you. So we as a firm focus on that founder, on you, because having been a licensed CPA for 32 years, I retired my license 2 years ago. Tom is a current licensed CPA as well, but having that experience certainly makes us different, and it helps us understand and communicate with your team of your CPA, your estate lawyer, your business lawyer, and all those people that matter in your picture. Today's all about you. It's all about your exit and giving you information that's going to help you have a more successful exit. As I mentioned, we had a client who sold a couple of years ago, and they sold for a good amount of money, but nonetheless, I had an investment banker tell me once, it might have been John Farr over here, who said, when your phone rings and someone makes you an offer over the phone, that is the lowest offer you will ever get. Isn't that horrible? So if you think, wow, 25 mil, I'll take it, and that's a lot of money, yes. What if it could have been 35? or 45, and you just didn't know it. Another thing John has told me before, John Farr, the investment banker, is that here in Arizona, about 80% of sellers, they don't bring in an investment banker or a business broker. That's just not part of our local environment. And you are the backbone of the U.S. economy. These local small companies that employ people, you're the backbone. So what we want to be able to do for you is to give you the tools and the resources and connect you with the people who can really help you have that successful exit. We use a comprehensive process in our wealth management firm, and that process is all about helping you make smart choices about your money, helping you to preserve what you've built up so far, helping you to make transfers to your heirs, helping you to maximize those charitable gifts, and helping you to protect the overall net worth so that it is less likely to be taken unjustly through some kind of a legal issue. So we're looking at you as much more than investing your money. Yes, that's important and that matters, but what matters most is when you've spent your lifetime building up a certain net worth, making sure that that is preserved and that you're accomplishing all those goals that are important to you. That network of professionals that we work with, some of them are here in this room, and I want to describe that network of professionals because we often hear from people in our conference room, when they hear how we do this, they get very excited about it. So you no doubt have a CPA for your business. You have a business lawyer, maybe an intellectual property attorney, insurance agents, bankers. You've got a variety of people who you work with. What we do in our office is we bring in the estate lawyer and the business lawyer and the CPA and the insurance agent and the banker and the financial planner into our conference room. We bring them in every 3 or 4 months, we bring them in to talk about a client situation. So you've got the brain trust of all these people with years and years of discipline and experience who are then focused solely on you. And the way we do it in our office, we don't put the name of the company up on the board or anything, so they don't know who the company is. But what they know is the situation. We tell them the family situation and what the owners are trying to get to and where the business is today. And so we had one fairly recently where we went through that exercise, and long story short, company was looking for some investment. The company had an offer to invest in the company, and the attorney who we spoke with about that, part of our professional network, was able to very quickly look at it, identify it as potential fraud. And so it never happened. But it cut it off before it became a problem. And that's the power of that professional network, where we had all those people in that room talking about that business all at the same time. So that's how I'd like to just set the stage for today. This is about the exit. So what we're going to do next is have a conversation with Hal Tashman from the Tech Group. That's a local company here. And his CEO that he hired, who is Harold Faig. Harold Faig is a professional CEO, and he came on board with the Tech Group to as you'll hear, get control of the company and really help prepare it for acquisition and exit for the founder. So Harold and Hal, why don't we sit here in these chairs and let's go ahead and have our conversation. So let me introduce to you, Hal Tashman is directly here on my left in the middle of these chairs. And what I thought we could do is just have a conversation with them about the exit of the business. He and his business partner hired Harold, who is on my far left over here, hired Harold to come in to help prepare the business for acquisition by another company, to help get it ready for them to then make that transfer. So Hal, I'm going to ask you if you could give them a sense of day one. We joined the company here in Phoenix, and then when you sold, let me just go through that if you can in a minute, if you could. If you could please.
Armando, thank you for giving us this chance to share our experiences, because it brought back all kinds of memories, and it's very valuable, I think, to share and meet people that are still in business, because after 2005, I've been mostly out of business, involved in different pursuits. So it's a great chance to share some of this experience with you all. I can identify and congratulate you for the role you're playing in society. I have great respect for business people and capitalism. I'm originally from Turkey. I came here in 1972, January, after about 3 months of searching where is the right place for me to make a future, after 4 years in New York in schooling. We became partners afterwards, Steve Allman. He had started this plastics business, and we had seen this movie, maybe some of you might remember, Dustin Hoffman in 1968 was very famous called The Graduate, and at the time talking about the plastics industry, the future is in plastics. So we were a custom molding business, making plastic parts, molds, plastic parts through injection molding for companies like Motorola and Revlon and electronics companies in the States. About $1 million in annual sales, 40, 50 people, not making any money. So, but things were, it's the right industry, and it's so important, I think, to recognize that the plastics industry, being in an industry where things are growing because the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thinking. So we grew, it became in 1980s contract manufacturing. We went into medical devices because it was more recession resistant. One location became 2 locations, 2 or 3 companies, and then I was spearheading the founding of 2 other packaging companies. We started making in Phoenix and in also Columbus, Indiana, closures, high volume caps for bottles, and there were people like Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, and then Clorox. So it became a different product line. And then we went into packaging from PET, making bottles and jars also in both locations. So it wasn't just contract manufacturing, we diversified. In the middle 80s, towards the end of 80s, the medical industry was going towards Puerto Rico because of tax advantages. So they said, if you don't come to our big customers like Abbott, Baxter, and many pharmaceutical companies, you're not going to be in this business. So it was a big decision at the time, thousands of miles away. How are we going to set up an operation in Puerto Rico? Different things. So that went well. And then we went to Ireland, in Dublin, because of, again, an island, several million people, tax advantages, because this time in the back of another large customer, Hewlett Packard, we were making cartridges for inkjet printers. So that's how we grew. We went to Singapore, we went to Mexico, Guadalajara, because of customers, large customers wanting us to be there. And that's how we grew. And our corporate office became more like a private equity firm, where very entrepreneurial people. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people, myself and my partner. We had the presidents of the different companies. Like in Ireland, we had 200 people, 100% Irish, and did well. The president was also a partner, owned a percentage of the business. So it was a very positive environment. We grew, we established in the late 90s Arizona Community Foundation, Tech World Foundation. So it was more than business. My partner Steve loved flying, and from a single engine plane over the years, we graduated to a citation jet. So visiting customers, it was fun. Overall, the business was a joyride. And so that's really, we had thousands of people. We went public in Singapore. In China, we bought a plant that was 1,700 people. So it was an amazing experience when I look back. And that's really the story of almost 33 years of partnership.
So when you decided to sell, what was that decision-making process? What was it where it was time to sell, where you decided to bring on Harold to help you through that process?
Before, in 2003, we were going public. Steve, Harold, and I. Harold was our CEO, and before that, we had an advisory group, advisors from large companies, because we. I think Harold calls it the Peter principle. Everybody, there is a level of our own incompetence. We grew, and we recognized, well, we can't run this. It's become so complicated in different countries and different projects. And so we asked from large companies, we put together an advisory board. And Harold was the president of Millicom, New York Stock Exchange, large company, and every 3 months we would meet and they would look at our performance and discuss issues. So as a privately held company, we were reaching out saying, how are we going, this has become a really large business. So in 2003, we were going to Singapore, 3 of us, and that morning, instead of going to the airport, I ended up going to the hospital. Heart problems, and I ended up with some stents. So that was one wake-up call.
And you didn't come on the trip.
And I couldn't join. So anyway, that's the value of a partnership. Still, things went on.
So Harold, let me ask you then. When you came on board, what did you see as your task, and how are you going to help Steve and Hal exit the business?
That's a very interesting question, because I think in order to answer that, you almost have to understand the personalities involved. As Hal mentioned, I was on the Tech Group Advisory Board for 10 years prior to taking over as the active CEO. But in that time prior to my joining, they had a failed attempt to bring a CEO on who did some damage to the company and the employees, etc. So kind of going into it, it was not quite sure what the mission was, except they really, both Hal and Steve, didn't really want to deal with the day-to-day operations anymore. And that kind of created a situation where we better figure out who's on first, or before this game is over, we might be out of the ballpark completely. Financially, the company suffered too. Sales were good. There was no issue there at all. Profitability was atrocious. Break even at best. So if you're sitting back analyzing the business, in my background, I spent 36 years in a large company with some very high-powered board members who really drove some fundamentals across this. And what really the mission was on that trip we were going to take was to get some consensus, at least from my perspective, on what they wanted to accomplish, and to learn. Being on the board doesn't mean you understand much about the business. It means that you ask questions, you answer questions, and then you move on. But I really wanted to understand the customer base, and we were going to, in that month, visit all of our significant customers, understand the management team and the complexity that Hal brought up about facilities all over the world. And some of these facilities were put together on a shoestring. Businesses were bought on a handshake, and you're not quite sure what you got, except you got a business in China, and you got a partner over there. Simultaneous to that, they decided to take the business in Singapore on the big board over there. So now we had to put a company in place in Singapore that was a public company. And that story kind of then he starts to resonate with Steve. And to know how, very pragmatic, very focused, very financial driven. And Steve was your entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Any new idea that came across, he was interested in and wanted to do it, and sometimes just went ahead and done that. And the idea was to get some agreement between the three of us on what approach we were going to take. So I spent probably the next 6 months after we got back really working with the two of them to understand what they wanted to accomplish in the business. There was conversation about going public. There was conversations about ESOPs. There was conversations about folding the business into the business in Singapore. It just went on and on. And I mean, it was always an idea, usually thrown out on the table by Steve. And to try to wrangle all of that in. But finally, we got it to a point where consensus was arrived at, and we were going to take the company and position it for sale. And from my perspective, you know, I came out of a company where the public boards that we had, where the chairman of Boeing, Neil Armstrong, was on the board, a lot of the professional industrial people. And they forced this issue on discipline and precise planning and violent execution on what you're going to do and the processes you put in place.
So we're getting a little bit short on time, but I do want, Harold, I'd like you to please talk about, you mentioned to me when you were in corporate America before joining Hal's company, that part of what you did was acquire companies. And talk about, if you wouldn't mind, just about, you liked talking with small businesses and acquiring them?
Yeah, part of growing the company, you can only grow so fast through organic growth. So a big part of it then becomes the acquisition path. And we had merchant bankers working with us that would find opportunities. But what I used to love, the small businesses, the mom and pops businesses, we built our industrial business around that. And I built the plastics business. And by the way, talking about plastics, I came out of the plastic side of it. I would love doing deals with the entrepreneurs. Generally, they came into the meetings totally unprepared, no legal representation, no accounting representation, and to me, that was a deal. I just needed a short bit of time to get it done, and it was, and it usually always you had to lead them through the process, and you kind of wondered whose side of the table you were sitting on after a while. But that's why this thing becomes so important.
Yeah. So we're going to get really short on time here, but Hal, please, if you'd like to make some comments.
Yes.
The founder of Exodus, please.
The time came where a call came from New York, somebody in healthcare business, and they said, would you be interested, such and such a company wants to buy the tech group. And then I talked to my partner and to Harold, and we decided that it was a very culturally fit company. to pursue it, and then negotiations started after about 6 months. May 2005, the 20th of May, it closed, and it was the happiest moment of my life. We went on a trip together with the wives, and then in July at the Royal Palms, we had with the management team celebration with our lawyers and all the teams, tax and CPAs and everybody. It was I think it was a very successful exit. Overall, we had the Arizona Community Foundation. Some of the money went there for our future life. Steve went on to philanthropy himself with the family office, helping with strong marriages. So we did really well with the funds we got out of it. And that's what I want to share with you. It could be a very positive experience, and it really helped. I gained a lot of friends through ACF and other philanthropic activities as a result of it. And business is very powerful. If you use it the right way, I think it leads to all kinds of positive things. And sure, we grew over the years at Tech Group, but it wasn't all up. There were ups and downs, and that's normal. And I always prayed for an honorable exit. And it's so important, I think, to pray, because you don't know when is the right time. You don't know. But there could be illnesses, external factors, economy, and things like that. So it is an unknown, but just, I think, pray that you have a successful exit by thinking about it, having the right people to help you, because we need help at the time. And if it wasn't for Harold, I don't know what we would have done. Because it was heavy negotiations. We had the right legal team, right financial tax people, and everybody helped, but still there is a lot of unknowns, and we incentivized the management team so they took the business forward. Another important part of, I think, exiting is all these years you have put together and you created this wonderful entity of people. Are they keeping growing, or is it going to go to dust? Will it disappear? So it's very important that in our case it grew. We still had several thousand people in the valley. In Ireland it became from 200 people, 1,000 people now. So it is not just money.
Right. So I'll just summarize a little bit quickly here. So as Hal and his business partner grew and went to throughout North America, Europe, and Asia, got to a point where it was just, as he said, that this big unmanageable thing. They brought in Harold. Harold came in to get that company prepared for acquisition, help understand where were Hal and his partner in terms of when did they want to exit, what did it want to look like, and then how did Harold actually go through that process to help them sell it and be done with it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead. So thank you both. We're going to now ask you both to be on the panel back here with us. So thank you both. So let me introduce to you our panel. And I'll start going left to right. John Farr is an investment banker with Columbia West Capital here in Scottsdale. His business partner, David Barnett, is here. David, where are you? So David's back there as well. And what they do is investment banking. So he will explain what that is, but in essence what they are, they're coming into your company to help understand what is your company and how can they help you get that through an auction process to get the most value for your company. So this is John Farr on my immediate left here. Next to him is Mike Patterson. Mike Patterson is a merger and acquisition attorney with the firm Spencer Fane. He's also a corporate attorney, but one of the emphasis areas, specialty areas, I suppose, let me get that over differently there, is M&A, which is merger and acquisition, meaning if you are buying a company and or selling a company, you want to get an attorney who has his expertise because it certainly is a specialty in the legal space. Next to Mike Patterson is Kimberly Kur. Kimberly Kur is with the Arizona Community Foundation, and she is a charitable advisor in the philanthropic world. The titles can be a little bit confusing, but I think of you as the go-to person, Kimberly, so that when someone is thinking of ways that they can give, that they can be impactful with their giving, they need to have a conversation with you because you understand the different ways that they can go, and you can work with their team of the CPA, the attorney, etc., to help navigate that on their behalf for their benefit. And of course, Hal, who you just met, the founder of the tech group here in Arizona, who sold the company almost 20 years ago, that had grown to just a phenomenal multi-continent business. And then Harold Faig. Harold mentioned, he just touched on that quickly, but he was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And in that role, he was buying companies, acquiring them. And as he said, he liked going to the family businesses because they didn't know how to do it. So he'd been through it many times before. That meant he was going to get a better deal because he knew how it worked and they simply didn't. And that's just how business works. So Harold is the professional CEO. An engineer is what he began with. And as you know, if you know anything about engineers, they're very methodical, very process-oriented, very dot the I's, cross the T's, and do it right. So I'm sure that carried out through your career as well. So what we'll do is go through and have some questions with each of them. And John, I'm going to ask you first, if I may. An investment banker, when you are talking with that founder who is thinking of selling, and they've never engaged someone like you, John, what is an investment banker? What do you do for them? How do you help them?
An investment bank is basically an intermediary. I think a lot of you all know that. We are commonly working for the owners of these businesses. We are helping them either sell their business or raise capital. We are based here. We're the only, I believe, FINRA-registered investment bank here. And it is essentially our goal, I'll say only half jokingly, to make investors pay more for our clients. But it's really not just about valuations, it's about terms and conditions. And for us, depending on that business owner's goals, it often entails running an auction process. One-on-one negotiations are very different than negotiations 5-on-1. The goal is to create a scenario where we're applying pressure to those buyers and ensure that at least one or two of them are willing to improve their offer relative to where they would have on a standalone basis. Our last 3 transactions, and I'm kind of cherry picking the timing, it's been good of late, were relative to their initial evaluation, 50% higher, 53% higher, and something like CS was around 30% higher than offers that they had received prior to our involvement. It's not done by clever negotiating, it's done by going out, making a market, figuring out positioning, and bringing in a number of bidders in a scenario where you can politely say, the owner really likes you, but you're just a little off market and you need to improve. So we're process oriented. We are the finance side of what Mike is commonly doing on the legal side, so I'll pass it on to Mike.
That sounds good. So Mike, let me ask you then, when you are, and thank you, John. So Mike, when you use a term called the anatomy of a sale, and as you're going through that first time, working with that first time seller who just hasn't gone through these ropes before, you have to educate, obviously. Can you talk about what do you think of as the anatomy of a sale?
First of all, I would also like to underscore if John and the investment bankers have created a hype or a competition for this business, an auction, it's not just the price, it's the terms. So now he's handed me some leverage to actually ask for what I want in the document for you. What I look at, first thing I want to know about you is, where is the value of your business? Is it in the contracts? Is it in IP that you have? Is it in someone really wanting your employees? Is it a regulatory approval that you have that no one else has? And then develop that strategy in the documents to maximize that, work with the investment banker. get the AR, the EBITDA up, cutting costs, do it now. There will be a recurring thing you'll hear from me. What is the anatomy? Well, you run an auction, you find the potential buyers. At some point, there'll be a letter of intent, and then there'll be some due diligence that follows that, and definitive documents. In other words, the actual purchase agreements and lots of schedules that go with them. Then there'll be a closing, and there is commonly, depending upon how the purchase price is negotiated, there may be an earn-out that may continue on, and we can monitor that with you. One of the biggest questions is, are we doing an asset purchase here or an equity purchase, stock purchase, or an LLC would be the membership interest? But there are some things that affect that. Are there some contracts that won't transfer if we do it as an asset purchase? We need to look at those and think about those. Is there a regulatory license that won't transfer unless we were doing it as an equity purchase? We're looking at assignment clauses and that kind of thing. I would encourage people that part of the process is establishing a data room, getting everything up in there. And I have clients who, on the first day they start their business, they start their data room for the day when they eventually sell their business. That's wonderful. I would say even if your sale is a couple of years off, start getting organized and get your data room. You can't. It's not too late to start today. If you get hit by a truck this afternoon, your spouse will love you that you have put together the data room. And then, what is your goals and your value? We will tweak this to fit that and create that leverage. There are other ways to do a sale too. One might be sell to the employees through an employee stock option plan, and then there may be a valuation that's tucked in here somewhere. And then also I would be talking with you, have you already done valuations? Have you told a third-party bank or lender a year ago what the value of your company is? We'd probably like to know what you've been telling third parties about the value of your business too. So that's enough for the moment.
Great, thank you, Mike. And then Kimberly, let me go to you then next here. As you're talking with a founder who hasn't had a conversation with you yet, and they're not really sure, they want to give. Maybe they're not sure how they want to give, maybe they're not sure what the impact is that they want to have, but what are some of the common concerns that you can help them with as they're thinking about exit and being able to give to help the community, maybe involve the family? Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Well, for one thing, a lot of the times when the founders come to us, they were referred by their professional advisor, and they're thinking about the tax liability for when they exit. And so, of course, the charitable giving is a way to offset that tax liability. So that's one thing that comes up. They often are thinking about their kids, already having enough, or they're afraid of their kids becoming entitled or trust fund babies, and they want to help instill values of hard work and giving back. They're thinking about moving from success to significance, and maybe how they're going to spend their time when they no longer have a business to run, and wanting to find more meaning in their life, especially when they no longer have the business. And maybe they've been involved in philanthropy and giving, and maybe they haven't, but they're really looking for some guidance in that way. And also maybe starting to think about their legacy that they want to leave, and how they want to be remembered, and how maybe their legacy can live on beyond them, supporting causes that are important to them. They're often thinking about, if they have family, keeping the family together, especially if they're dispersed geographically. And often it's really, well, where do I even begin? And even if they've already been giving, they might be thinking, well, how can I be more strategic? And what are the resources available? And some donors are afraid too that they'll start to be solicited more and more. And the Community Foundation, has a lot of ways to customize how we support our donors and meet every donor where they are. We say we meet one donor, we meet one donor. So it's hard to really, say this is, the sample donor. Hal is a great example of a longtime donor. I think you predate me, Hal. You served on our board for so many years and have been such a pillar and leader and so inspiring. So I'm so honored to be on the panel with you. And actually, I'm happy to share some more examples of how we support. But I do want to also let you know that in the back we have these beautiful brochures and Hal's pictures on the inside cover. So, but do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, I think this. Thank you. This concept of finding meaning in one's life, I really learned a lot from Arizona Community Foundation. In addition to lots of friends, I was able to do something for Turkish Americans in New York City, a community foundation that's been 15 years old after the company, and it is during the earthquake last several months ago, you might have heard, it became a very focal point, and anybody that's involved with that foundation feels good. And then in my hometown in Turkey, we established another community foundation. So lots of good things came out of it with my involvement with Arizona State University. So it really, the business prepared, little did I know that it would give this opportunity through ACF, lots of good things, friends and finding some meaning. Otherwise, the other thing that happened was illnesses start happening, and at the time of the exit of the business, I didn't know. But it was wonderful timing to exit because it gave time to spend with these health issues in the family.
Thank you.
I've invited Ana Maria Chavez. Ana Maria Chavez is the new CEO of the Arizona Community Foundation. And so, Kimberly, that's where you work at ACF. And I'm on the board of ACF, full disclosure, so I'm a big fan of ACF and have been for a very, very long time. And Kimberly, is there anything you'd like to say maybe about Ana and what the direction of ACF is with her on board?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's just so exciting. Almost 3 months in. And wow. What Anna's already done in just such a short time is traveling all over the state to all of our regional offices and just meeting with every donor and every board member and just inspiring all the staff. And we're about to embark on our strategic learning process and just really excited to be here, be out in the community, and she does have to sneak out for a speaking engagement. So thank you for the opportunity to introduce Ana.
Good. And I'm excited that you're here as well. What you might not know about ACF is a 501c3. There are many good 501c3s here in Arizona. But what I like about ACF is that ACF, their goal is to help you have that impact. So if you want to support heart disease or kids or education, they have outreach throughout Arizona, and they can help find the best way, the most impactful way, the most economical way for you to have that kind of an impact because of the people that you have and the outreach that you have in Arizona. So Ana, I realize you guys are running here, but wanted to make sure just to recognize you quickly. Good. So let me go back then, John, investment banker here. You're a very, I think, a very unique space in what you do, a very focused space in what you do. And you've mentioned before that you work with institutional buyers. And one thing you said to me before is, it just isn't fair for that founder to go up directly against a private equity firm or directly with a professional buyer because they do this day in, day out, and they're really disadvantaged. So you are working with those institutional buyers. Can you talk about what that really means to them and how you help them in that process? How you help in that process?
No, certainly. Can I just add one thing, though, to your and Kimberly's last point? Part of the reason why we're talking about charity today, in addition to just doing well in our communities, is the fact that there are ways to take a lot of these cap gains or ordinary income, worse ordinary income, and put that into charitable trust, put that into trust for your kids or other things that allow for the avoidance of taxes. A great way to donate to charity is by doing it in a manner that keeps your tax bills low. And there are people in this room who do that. I know Armando's worked with a number of people that I'm aware of on that. Kevin Siegel on the CPA side has kind of basically created a living out of keeping people's taxes lower upon the sale of their business or real estate. So this is a way to, I'll call it have your cake and eat it too. That's kind of a cheesy expression, but at any rate, regarding institutional capital, we say that when Columbia West is working for companies, we tend to take on clients who are going to face institutional capital. So there's a couple of connotations there. One is, just by size, a certain check writer size is relevant. We are commonly not working with the mom and pops on one end, nor the billion-dollar companies on the other end. We like spending our time in the middle market. And so what that connotes is that we're not doing those, what I call pass-the-hat deals. There are certain rounds where someone's raising a number of $50,000 checks from 100 people in order to do a capital raise or to sell. We're commonly not doing that. We're commonly working in processes where our clients are being placed with one or two investors. And so I guess what I can say is just with many owners commonly like you, when you begin this process, you think, I'm ready to retire or I'm ready to get that big check and reward myself and see that. But then we run a process, we go out, we get 3-5 offers, and then at that moment, many times, all you all are talking about is legacy. Which one of these offers is going to take this business where I envisioned it when I was younger, when I started this and I left my job, and you're spending a lot of time focused on that. And I don't care who you are, at some point you start to think about that, even the just most stone cold guy that walks in our office talking about nothing but valuation. It's very real. And so what we like to do is make sure that we have people on that investor list who are capable of that. And what that typically entails is people with resources, capabilities, or they've done it before. And I'm talking now broadly about either strategic buyers or private equity buyers. But it's very common with either of those groups where they come in, they look at a business of your size and they say, I get this, I know the system that they need, that CRM system, that ERP system. We've done this before. We did this a couple of years ago with a business that we bought that was just like this one, guys, and they're talking to their team, and they already have the playbook for taking you where you had wanted it to go. You have 5 managers at the office. You've done a great job for what you got. That business might have 100. Okay? So it's taken on capabilities. You're also obviously assessing those qualitative things as well. Is this the right culture? Are these good people? Do I want my employees working for these people? It's not all about resources and capabilities. Sometimes it's about culture, but private equity as well. I love certain private equity groups, and I can't stand others. It's our job to keep those bad ones at bay and bring to you the ones who have a long history of taking $10 companies and turning them into 100. Commonly, they will want you to roll some equity. That's a great thing for many of you. And so going to institutions means we're able to bring resources to you that you have not been able to create yourself in the amount of time you've been willing to give them.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Harold, let me ask you a question. As you came into position, Hal's company for acquisition by somebody else, what were some of the obstacles that you had to address in the company?
There are probably 100. And I'm being facetious with that number. But the big things that needed to address, you mentioned culture before. That's a big one. So here is a company having some insight in the company because I had been on the board. They had gone through a failed CEO placement. You had various people that were very strong technically, very strong backgrounds, and had their own ideas on how to run a business and what needed to happen. And in fact, most of it was wrong. So the culture, getting the culture right, was very, very important in this thing, because you can't have an organization where you have the informal system is more powerful than the formal system. That doesn't work. Or where the individual, there's an individual in it that has a very strong personality. Generally, the organization takes on the characteristics of that personality. So if you're going into it, you better understand how this culture is and what you got to do. The second thing that it became obvious, Hal mentioned that healthcare was an area. It's an area that I'm very familiar with, both prior to joining the tech group, because of the equipment that we sold into the healthcare business, that this company was not structured at all to represent itself as a healthcare company. So we needed to restructure the whole business. We closed facilities. We moved businesses from one facility to another. We bought a facility in the Midwest so that we could move product into that to segment healthcare from non-healthcare. That in itself is a major undertaking. The thing that probably the employees, I would say, had the most trouble with was I am a big stickler, even today in the businesses that I've had. I believe in a planning process up front where you sit down, you identify what the company's all about, you go through the financial systems, and that gets cleaned up so it's rock solid. You build a plan on how you're going to go forward with the business, put some financials against that so that when you're sitting down with the private equity firms, you understand what you're talking about and what the value is. When we sold the tech group, we sold it on forward EBITDA, on 2 years going forward. And that made a big difference. So if you're going to do that, that plan has got to be believable. And it's got to really make sense. So going through that, what I found was that not one of the key managers knew how to do that, which means I had to bring in 2 additional people to support this process. One from Thunderbird University, so that we had some credible processes behind it. And finally, the last thing we had to build was an incentive system so that it rewarded those individuals who put the time and effort in, because we have 2 things to do. Run the business, drive the financials where we had projections for them, and then the second piece of it is to get it ready for sale. And, those 2 things will cause deal fatigue, because in our process we wound up almost a year doing it because the buyer at points thought he had a better, more attractive opportunity with some other companies, and that process had to get interrupted, yet without losing it. And that means that you better have a good relationship with the people you're side by side with, meaning, for instance, in this case, Hal and Steve, because I killed the process twice during that process. And I give them all the credit in the world. I mean, I don't know how I'd feel if I'm sitting there and my guy said, you know what, we're not moving forward with it. But, there was trust, and that's probably the other thing that's so important, is that there's trust in the team that's there.
Hal, would you like to add anything?
I think management team, tying the management team to those future targets was a key, because those targets were reached. The projections were reached, and in the end, those payments that were due later after the transaction took place happened because the management team was incentivized, and we made it happen. In another situation, my brother and I had a business. It wasn't this way. The business was sold 2018. It was a window and door business. We sold it to Anderson Windows 3 years ago. And it went through a process of looking for who's the buyer. Because in the Tech Group case, the buyer came to us. We didn't have a competitive position. So negotiations took a long time, and it was key. And that's where Harold's presence made the big difference, and his patience. And he was a very hard negotiator. The day after the deal closed, they fired Harold, the buyer, new buyer. They didn't want him around. I think he gave them a hard time. So, but
a lot of heartburn.
With the other, with the Anderson Windows, it was a very different process. It took 6 months and quite orderly, and it closed. And I think the hardest part of that was my brother did not want to sell the business. So in a partnership situation, his wife, my sister-in-law, wanted him to sell because of health reasons and others, and I wanted him to sell, but he didn't. He loved going to work, and he had 75, 80 people. He solved problems. He loved business, and he said, I want to die working, so please leave me alone. I think that was another dimension of this business exit. So he's happy today that we convinced him. He's sailing in San Diego, and he does other wonderful things. But it was a job to convince. So there's a psychology here that's involved in the exit business.
Thank you, Hal. So, Mike, when you're drafting the actual agreement, that legal agreement that is the sale document, how do you protect them in that when you're drafting that?
Oh, first of all, I'd like to be involved from the letter intent stage, because sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and we can't get things into the definitive documents when the LOI didn't have it there. Also, that letter of intent, if it's not properly drafted, can allow for just unending due diligence, and then the more information they get, they come and pound you on price and say, oh, well, we found these negative things, we need to go back down. And so if you haven't got a multiple buyer situation, an auction like John has run with some leverage, we want that LOI to be drafted properly. If this is not moving quickly and there are limits on that due diligence, then we'll move on to the next buyer behind you if you're not going to fish your cut bait here. So that's one issue. One, how is that cash paid is really important. Is it cash up front? Are they going to roll some stock, as John mentioned? And then, are there restrictive clauses in there? Are you in agreement with that? Are you done? And it's not only you, but other probably people affiliated with you that might be asked to be signing some restrictive clauses, and what are those going to be? So we want to limit some of that. We want to look at two areas in particular in the document, and you need to be ready to work with your lawyer on this. There's pages and pages of things called reps and warranties, where you're going to say, there are none of these: environmental, litigation, tax, intellectual property, there's no claims, no liens, etc. You need to take some time and go through the wording on those, and we're going to limit that to your knowledge, or we're going to put some limitations and qualifiers on that to protect you. There's also the indemnity section. After the deal is done, if something pops up, how much you have to indemnify them, or are they you, etc. And there's caps that we can put on what the liability is if you're selling, that there's no liability above this amount, or that there's baskets too, is on the bottom part, that they're not going to come nickel and dime you. They can't come really make a claim until they have enough in a basket to go after that, in a simple word of saying that. The employee issues, we want to look at those very carefully. You care about your employees, we want to make sure, and then also for your value, Have you tied people up with appropriate, have you got your people where they're going to stay put so that you have the value? If you're not selling for 2 years, now would be a good time to do some of that. And then shareholder issues. Do you have a clean cap table, or are there 120 people on your cap table that you handed out stuff to over the years? Do you need to clean some of that up? Do we need to have a pre-transaction here where we get it down to the key shareholders? Is there a shareholder agreement amongst them so you can do what we call drag along? If I get a buyer on the hook, I can force all of you to agree to go and finish this sale with me. And then, are you going to really sell the whole thing, or do you want to keep the building and lease it to the new buyer? Do you want to have your intellectual property in a separate entity, and you give an exclusive license for what they need for this business, but there may be other applications of your intellectual property that you want to exploit in other areas in the future? That's also something we talk about with clients. And then also, who does the drafts? I'd like to do the drafts. If the buyer, if it's institutional, they may have their drafts, and so, no, it's ours and the highway, so we'll redline those. But I prefer not to be putting blood all over their document, and I'd rather them to have to, particularly where there's multiple potential buyers that John has brought to the table, I'd prefer that them have to worry about, maybe we don't mess with that clause for him, and there's some leverage. If we come out, don't just think that because your lawyer did the draft that, that's more fees. It may not be. We want to avoid some of the rounds that we have to go through of fixing something that's really hardball the other direction as well. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So I want to touch on a couple of things. John Farr mentioned tax incentives. And he mentioned that in terms of going through the sale where maybe there's some goals for legacy. And taxes, of course, Kevin Seabolt, you're in the back of the room, you get a tax practice and you do a lot of this kind of thing. And you know how those mechanics work and those levers, that's great. What I would want to get to, though, along with those is really Kimberly Kur. You're talking with the family, and what we often hear as the wealth manager is, I don't want to ruin my kids. I don't want to give them a check for $10 million, and now my kids don't work, they're lazy, they don't do anything good. I don't want to ruin my kids. So yes, there are tax levers that can save you a lot of money, but Kimberly, I think that with your work, you're helping that couple understand what some of the options are. And if they want to not ruin the kids or engage the kids, how do you navigate that with them? How do you help them?
Sure, and if I could just speak for a moment about our capacity to accept complex asset gifts. So, the concentration of wealth is in closely held businesses and real estate, and we're able to accept interest in those types of assets as well as other kinds of assets like promissory notes and life insurance policies and tangible personal property like collectibles. So we actually, I just want to point out Amber Ramirez in the back, who's also a former estate planning attorney and been in the philanthropy world for a long time, has joined our team to expand that capacity. So something to keep in mind, as John said, to help maximize the tax benefits of your giving. So in terms of how we work with the families, we want to meet every donor where they are, and we really engage in a discovery process to see what's motivating each donor and help to develop the goals and then the strategies to achieve those goals. And it's really important, and like Armando shared, we partner with the whole team of advisors to carry that out. And if they're thinking about starting their fund or their foundation with ACF during the exit planning process, it's really comforting for founders to know that they don't have to decide exactly what they want to give to, during this very busy exit planning time. And they can set up the fund and know that we can help explore all the giving options over time, and it can evolve and iterate over many years. So that's exciting for them. And the idea of engaging adult children and grandchildren is really inspiring to many. And certainly if they don't have children, we can do all the same things in terms of developing strategic charitable plans and answering questions like, the kinds of things that they want to support, setting focus areas, what kind of grant making do they want to do. We all have lots of tools and resources, our team. We're all becoming chartered advisors in philanthropy, which is a designation by the American College, and so it deepens our understanding of the whole nonprofit landscape. We're also becoming 2164 advisors, so we're skilled in facilitating family retreats and taking families through the philanthropic journey. There's lots of tools through the National Center for Family Philanthropy that we have, and we do, if I could take a moment, I could share a specific example of a family. So there's many that we've done these retreats for, and each founder might have a different idea of how they want their retreat to be structured. One family in particular, we just had their 5th annual family retreat, and the founders themselves just want their kids to do good. And they actually travel around the world with they 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren, and they go on trips together. And then at we've developed a customized grant proposal that each adult child and grandchild can submit grants. We pre-vet those, and then the founders review and decide which ones are going to get presented. And the kids and grandchildren all present at the annual retreat their proposals, and each child and grandchild has an allocation, and then based on the presentations and what inspired them, they get to give their allocation to someone else. They can't give it to their own. And this family actually has endowed this fund. So the amount that they give each year is in accordance with our spending policy for endowed funds, so that it grows over time and there's more to grant out each year. And they tweak the process each year, and it's been amazing to see the family grow together through this.
And I would imagine once they're done with the business, and now they have this that's an ongoing new thing for them, it's going to be very engaging for those founders and their families after they're done with their company as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're getting close on time. The last 30 seconds here. John, I'll start with you. What would you suggest those who have not gone through Nexa before, as the investment banker who does this day in, day out, this is your business, 30 seconds, what would your recommendations to them be?
Put your team together, right? Banker, transaction attorney, maybe estate planning attorney, wealth manager, CPA. It's a lot of people. I know you're thinking, well, that's a lot of expense. It's all designed to save you a great deal of money, making sure all those functions are tucked in. And then I'd say start communicating it with your team, your family, the people who make the business go, the people who are expected to stick around post-close. Create a plan, communicate it, and make sure that all oars are rowing in the same direction prior to getting to that moment.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Mike?
I'd say start now. You know when you're going to sleep tonight, you know that pesky employee that needs to go. You know you've got 10 divisions and 2 of them aren't performing. Why not get rid of those and focus your business? What you know about that one person on the board of directors that if we get into a deal, he's going to ruin the deal. He may just kill it, and so maybe he needs to go. You may have undocumented loans where you've just been putting money into the business and you've never created promissory notes and got those on the books, etc. It's time to clean all that stuff up. Do yourself a favor. Start now and not on the eve of the deal.
Thank you, Mike. Kimberly, 30 seconds, your last vote. What advice, suggestions do you have for them as they're thinking about selling their business?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about what the next journey is going to be when you do sell, engage us now as well so we can help you think through that and as we talked about, maximize the tax benefits of your giving. And we take cash too, so you can start small and get a comfort level as well. And that's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you. Hal, what advice would you have?
I would say a good exit would be enhanced greatly in addition to all the comments made. I would say knowing what you want to do after, it's a good motivator. I think what will be like? What will life be like? There is a lot of unforeseen events that might take place, but psychologically being ready for it with this, with the success of all these years of effort, it gives you choices. Is it travel? Is it so many options are available? I think I always pictured like a third of my life will be education, a third will be work, and the last third or whatever life remains is going to be giving back. So it was having a clear mission, like Harold mentioned, would be very helpful. What happens after the exit?
Harold, what suggestions would you have for them?
And just two simple ones. Have a plan. When I talk about a plan, I'm talking about, build something that you can envision that the company is going to achieve over the next few years. Because more than likely, that's going to be the basis of where you start to talk value. Second piece of this thing is have somebody involved that deals with this, who understands it, so that you can continue to run the business without the two getting sideways with each other, and the business will suffer. I guarantee you that. So have a trusted advisor in this process.
Great. Thank you, Harold. So I'm going to tack on a little bit to that as well. As the wealth management firm, our focus is you. It's the founder. It's your family. So we're thinking about you and your spouse, your adult kids, your grandkids, and you happen to own this company that is worth significant value that you've created from your blood, sweat, and tears. But our concern, similar to Kimberly over here, is you, and once this company is now done with, what is that lifestyle going to look like? What does going forward look like? But then how do you also get the right people on board to maximize that value? So we're always looking at, what are your values as an individual, as a person? What are your values? What are your goals as a family, as a person? What are those? What relationships really matter most in your life? Who are they? Who are those people that you want to somehow benefit today, in the future? And what does that benefit look like to them? What are the assets that you have today? And what is this value that we're talking about on your company? What are your advisors that you're working with? Are they the right ones, or have you outgrown some of those? What processes do you want to follow? And then what do you do for fun? What interests you? Because as Hal said, having a plan after you are done with your business, you've got to have some kind of plan. Something is your next step. And that would be what interests you now, what tugs at your heart, and what do you want to do. So just to recap really quickly, you've heard from John Farr, the investment banker, Mike Patterson, the merger and acquisition attorney, Kimberly Kur with the Arizona Community Foundation, the founder, Hal Tashman, formerly with the Tech Group, and then Harold Faig, his professional CEO, who he hired in the last 2 years of his business to help him make that company attractive to a buyer. And so the expertise at the table is really phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom with everyone here. And we're going to be doing a couple of things here. Once we're done, we're going to have the reception out on the site here. But I want to show you just a couple of things. You may have heard in the news recently about the failed Silicon Valley Bank. And then what just yesterday, was it First Republic? Yeah, First Republic Bank. Two of the biggest bank failures in U.S. history in the last, 6 weeks? So it's got some people a little bit nervous. But if you also do a little bit of homework on those banks, you'll find that they could have and should have done a stress test, especially Silicon Bank. Pretty basic, finance 101. You don't put all of your money in bonds because bonds drop in value when interest rates go up, and that's what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. A stress test would have identified that so quickly that a first-year college student could have said, hey, this is a problem. But it didn't happen. We have a founder stress test, and we had these on the back table back there. This is for our firm, AXIOM Founders Family Office. This stress test is designed to do the same thing. Where are you today? Where do you want to go? What do you have in place right now? And is that really going to work to get you there? So this founder stress test, and if you have questions on that, you can ask me afterwards. We'll have some of these in the back table as well. But this is designed so that you don't become the next Silicon Valley Bank or First Republic. Again, you have one chance to make that exit right, and that's why all these steps are so darn critical that you make sure and get them right. You have one of these on your table, this little colorful card for the Scottsdale Founders Forum. I'm going to point this out for two things. If you flip this over, you're going to see in the back a QR code, and that QR code, I couldn't find it, two things though, but on the QR code, there is, if you scan this, you can find two things. One is, there's a book. Tom, could you hold up one of the books, get the book back there, please? So there's a book, Your Optimal Financial World. Thank you, Tom and Miguel. That book is available as an ebook. If you want to get that ebook version, scan that QR code. There's a link there where you can get that book and download that to read it. The whole idea of that book is that the super rich have their own private family office, full-time people, they work just for that family. Most of us are never going to get to that $500 million super rich category, but we still have those same needs. And the book speaks to that. Having that professional network of people can be extremely beneficial to you. So that's one thing you get by scanning the QR code. The other is, if you'd like to have a 30-minute exploratory phone call with me about where you are or about whether a stress test, the founder stress test, is appropriate for you at this time, there's also a calendar on there where you can do that as well. So that's what is available to you through that QR code. Also, I want to call your attention to that check in the corner over there. You might have seen that, maybe you haven't. But we put this together as a firm. Our goal, there's so many good people in Arizona and so many good companies. I love Arizona. I grew up here. My grandmother was born here in 1911. I'm third generation on my grandmother's side. But anyhow, we have a fantastic state and a lot of good people doing good work. Our goal, as we help good people do good work and exit their businesses, our goal is to help raise $100 million for Arizona nonprofits and charities. So we had this check printed up so that 3 years from today, with any luck, we'll be able to say we helped founders raise money from the sale of their business and help give that to Arizona nonprofits and charities. And $100 million might sound like a pretty lofty goal, and it is. I'm not saying it's not. But the Arizona Community Foundation, in about the last year, got its biggest gift ever from a founder who sold part of their business. How much did they get? $100 million. One donor. One donor. One donor. So it is doable, it is attainable, and that is our goal. We have that check up to show you that this is part of what we're trying to do to help Arizona. And it's going to be in our conference room so that we can see it every day and help us to reach towards that goal. But a lot can come together as you think about exiting the business, the tax advantages, bringing the family together, engaging a team like Kimberly's to help engage all of them and keep that family unit strong as you suddenly get all of this wealth and you try to do your best with it as a steward of your family and in the community here as well. Make sure I touch on everything here. I think that I did. And the last thing I'll leave you with is just one thing. Imagine. Imagine that this is the day that you woke up today, and this is the day that you just finished selling your business yesterday. This is the very first morning. You're waking up and you're feeling great. You feel fantastic. Birds chirping, you can smell the coffee in the kitchen, you have no payroll issues, you've got no line of credit, you've got no attorneys to deal with. No offense, Mike. You've got no tax issues from the business because you sold your business. And you're in the 20% that actually feels happy about it and you feel great about it. And the reason you're there is because you engaged people with expertise and you took all those appropriate steps ahead of time. So when it actually came time to sign that deal that Mike drafted for you, you feel fantastic. That's what's possible when you do the ideas and concepts that you've heard today with this panel. I'll leave you with that. I'd like to give a round of applause for our experts.